And a month after one of the most dramatic and disruptive chemical spills in the state's history, West Virginia is still dealing with lingering questions about the safety of its drinking water. It's an issue that took front and center in a rare congressional hearing that took place in West Virginia. Members of the U.S. House of Transportation and Infrastructure Committee traveled to the state's capital city to ask state leaders the still unanswered questions surrounding the leak. At the hearing, the U.S. Chemical Safety Board revealed that an inspection conducted 3 months prior to the spill did not meet federal and industry standards. Interestingly, Freedom Industries, the company responsible for the actual leak, did not attend this hearing, facing a whole host of lawsuits from those who had been harmed. Freedom Industries filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The bankruptcy shielded it from lawsuits, and since then, the company has been increasingly mum about the spill that has affected thousands. And what happened to West Virginia's Elk River only sheds light on an even bigger water catastrophe that took place many years ago at Camp Lejeune. The military base may be most recognizable as the home to hundreds of thousands of Marines and their families, but Camp Lejeune, which is located in Jacksonville, North Carolina, also has a darker side. It's the site of what is thought to be the largest water contamination disaster in American history. Between 1957 and 1987, hundreds of thousands of Marine Corps members and their families were exposed to tap water containing extremely toxic chemicals. During that time, people living at the base bathed in that water, drank it, and ingested it. However, the water had been contaminated with chemicals, all thought to be the result of underground storage tanks that leaked, industrial area spills, and waste from an off-base dry cleaning business. Now, years later, thousands of Lejeune residents have been dealing with the long-term effects of being exposed to those chemicals. For some, the reality has meant dealing with ailments like cancer, kidney damage, and birth defects. And for other more severe cases, it has meant death. In a statement to RT, a Marine Corps spokesperson said the following: "Some of our Marine family members have experienced tragic health issues they believe are associated with water they drank or used in the past at Camp Lejeune. Our goal is to use the best available science in an effort to provide our Marine Corps family members the answers they deserve and keep them updated with information as it becomes available." But two men who have been personally affected by this toxic water say the Marine Corps response just isn't enough. Jerry Ensminger is a career Marine who raised his family at Camp Lejeune. His daughter Janie died of leukemia when she was just 9 years old. And Mike Partain is the son of a Marine who was born at Camp Lejeune. At the age of 39, Partain was diagnosed with male breast cancer. They were both here in Washington, D.C. today to meet with lawmakers regarding some new research on Camp Lejeune survivors. I first asked Jerry Ensminger to tell me about the point at which he realized his daughter's death was not just a coincidence.
I had no idea. I mean, when she was diagnosed, it's a natural thing for a parent that has a child that's diagnosed with a catastrophic illness to wonder why. And I was no exception. It wasn't until 1997 that I found out about the contaminated drinking water.
And how did you find out about it?
I was fortunate enough to have retired in the area down close to Camp Lejeune. And when ATSDR was releasing their initial public health assessment back in 1997, one of the local TV stations did a story on it. And
so it took over 10 years to find out. 14 years. And Mike, you were actually diagnosed with male breast cancer at 39, which is an incredibly young age. Of course, it's a very rare thing for a man to be diagnosed with. How did you come to the realization that you weren't alone in what you were dealing with?
Well, I mean, 2 months after I was diagnosed, we found out about Camp Lejeune through Jerry testifying on Capitol Hill about the children born there between 1968 and 1985. And I realized at that point I was one of those children because my birthday's in 1968. Shortly after that, there was a news story in my local paper that went on the internet, and it just shows you the power of the internet. A gentleman from Alabama saw that story, contacted me, and he had been a child at Camp Lejeune during the 1960s, actually lived in the same neighborhood that I was born in at the same time that I was born, and he too was diagnosed with male breast cancer. Once I realized that there was another one, out there, that I wasn't a fluke and there had to be more. And it's been now 7 years since my diagnosis, and in that 7-year period, we have located across the country 85 men, including myself, who had the single commonality of exposure at the base as a Marine or the child of a Marine and male breast cancer. And it's the largest male breast cancer cluster that I'm aware of that's ever been identified.
It's incredible. And how are those people that you've connected with, what's their prognosis? How are they?
Well, I mean, it's the disease itself, I mean, depending whether it metastasized to the body, determines, survivability. I'm 7 years out and I'm cancer-free at this point. We just lost a good friend right before Christmas who had fought the disease, it went into remission, came back with a vengeance, and he passed, unfortunately, from that. So it just depends on where the cancer got to.
I'm sorry to hear that. Well, as I understand it, there were a number of different chemicals, man-made chemicals, in this water. Can you talk a little bit, Mike, about the ones that were sort of most detrimental?
Well, there's 4 primary contaminants that were identified in the water that we have testing and can show that were there. The first one's benzene from fuel. Over the 40-year period, operational period of the the base fuel farm, the Marine Corps lost about 1.5 million. The Marine Corps lost an estimated 1.5 million gallons of fuel into the groundwater at Camp Lejeune, which is where Camp Lejeune derives its drinking water from. Then we have tetrachloroethylene, which is a dry cleaning chemical. It's also used in cleaning different agents, weapons, guns, things like that. Trichloroethylene, which is also used as a solvent to clean weapons, maintenance for vehicles and tanks and things like that. And then the fourth one is a degradation product called vinyl chloride. 3 of the 4 are known human carcinogens.
And Jerry, when you brought this to the attention of the Marine Corps, what was the response from them?
Denial. And I mean, basically, that's the same stance that they're taking today. I have a token phrase for them, and it's lie and deny. But I wanted to correct one thing that you said in your introduction to this. The contamination began at the largest and worst contaminated drinking water system on the base, which was the Hadnot Point, or what the Marines referred to it as Mainside, in 1953.
Wow, so this goes way back.
Yes, wow. And that's verified by ATSD, or the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. Their water model confirms that date, so it's...
And Jerry, going off of what I was just asking you, I mean, was it difficult for you to see the Marine Corps respond that way?
Oh, absolutely.
Denying it?
Yeah, I mean, nobody could have been more disillusioned in the misconduct of the leadership of our Corps. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was a Marine drill instructor. I trained over 2,000 new Marines. I instilled in them our motto, which is Semper Fidelis, which is Latin for always faithful. And we also had another slogan, and it was, we take care of our own. And unfortunately, our motto is a one-way street.
And I should mention that Semper Fi is a documentary that's out.
Semper Fi, Always Faithful, is the name of a documentary.
Great documentary that sort of charts this entire story. But Mike, I actually tried to secure an on-camera, I tried to secure an on-camera interview with the Marine Corps, and they denied me that. What's your sense as to why they are so tight-lipped about this?
I mean, the Marine Corps is the institution of honor and integrity. And getting the truth out of the leadership of the Marine Corps from the beginning of the contamination has been like akin to trying to nail Jell-O to the wall. At the very onset in 1985, when the contamination became known publicly, we have the base environmental engineer on record stating that people weren't directly exposed to the pollutants. And this lie has just been perpetuated and mutated over the past 25, 30 years.
And now they've gotten to the point where you've requested There's been numerous people that have requested interviews with them. They turn everybody down because now that the truth is out there and the media knows what the truth is, they don't want to put anybody out on camera where they can be trapped into asking a follow-up question and get the truth out of it.
I did get that sense. Now, Jerry, in 2012, there was a piece of legislation passed in the name of your daughter, Janie Ensminger. Can you tell us about what that's done and also how that's sort of fallen short for the people that really need aid right now?
That bill was basically something to get our foot in the door. I know it had a lot of shortcomings. You know, we have a phrase that it's a Band-Aid over a sucking chest wound, but it's a start. And that was the way I viewed it. The president signed it into law. The health care for the former service members started immediately upon his signature. But to this day, not one of the family members has ever gotten any benefit out of it.
So you're still waiting for benefits from that. And almost 2 years later.
Yeah, and then the service members, they're only guaranteed health care because of that law. If they want the rest of their veterans' benefits, they have to jump through the hoops just like every other veteran. That law was basically an admission of guilt. They actually stated that these people were poisoned while they were at Camp Lejeune, and we were poisoned by our own government, our own leaders.
That was Jerry Ensminger, co-founder of The Few, the Proud, and the Forgotten, and Mike Partain, the organization's lead community member.